Marjorie Wallace, founder of the mental health charity SANE, has been campaigning to get better services for the mentally ill. Tomorrow, at the beginning of World Mental Health Week, she and other campaigners are raising awareness in the issue. With London's hospitals hugely in debt, she's concerned that cuts in mental health are leaving our most vulnerable people with literally nowhere to go.
1 in 4 of the population experiences mental and emotional distress at some time in our lives. They say cut back. We say fight back.
All of these people have one thing in common. Each has been touched by mental illness at some point in their lives.
I'm demonstrating for my own sake because I suffer from long-term depression.
I suffer from bipolar, and I'm demonstrating because I go to the Lorrimore Day Centre.
We are people with experience of mental health problems, and we're tired of being silenced. We're starting to fight now for our rights.
They say cut back. We say fight back.
It's sheer desperation that's holding these people together.
There are going to be £8 million worth of proposed cuts to mental health services across Southwark and Lambeth. And this will mean the reduction of nearly 20 services and, most importantly of all, the closure of the walk-in emergency clinic. I've known this clinic for many years. It's the only resource where people in crisis can go and find help, expert care and treatment. It will be a tragedy if this clinic closes.
It's ironic that 20 years ago, this very same clinic at the Maudsley was under threat. It's what inspired me to campaign for mental health in the first place, and now here I am, still joining in the fight to keep it open. Last week, the Healthcare Commission criticised the majority of mental health services for failing to provide out-of-hours crisis care. For Jill's family, this 24-hour walk-in service was the only place she could turn to when her son became desperately ill.
Why are you here and fighting?
Because I don't want it to be closed. It's a haven for people in distress.
My son was suffering from a depressive illness, and it had proved impossible to get the necessary treatment in A&E. The atmosphere there is too stressed, too charged. The emergency clinic is immediately quiet. It's immediately somewhere where you can just sit calmly and wait for somebody to attend to you. My experience, the first time we entered into the emergency clinic was, at last some help.
If the emergency clinic wasn't there, I would probably have been dead kind of 4 years ago. Because I had 2 suicide attempts in that year anyway.
I've only been an inpatient once myself at Maudsley. I was in the elderly adults group after spending a day in the emergency clinic, and it was very helpful. And if we'd had to go to King's, it would have been, to start with, it would have been quite terrible.
There's thousands of people who use it and need it every year. Where are they going to get emergency help? The Maudsley Hospital has been in operation for an awful long time, and it seems just such a shame to withdraw that vital service.
The government has made mental health one of its 3 key priorities. Yet despite many improvements and new monies, much of the promised revolution hasn't reached the front line. There are still 1,200 people with mental illness who take their own lives every year. And I firmly believe that with better care and treatment, these tragedies could be prevented. Take the case of 25-year-old Wesley McGoldrick. He was suffering from depression, had a history of self-harming, and was sleeping rough.
He wasn't his normal self at all. He looked awful. He was obviously depressed, Blind person could have seen that.
Wesley was caught shoplifting cheese and milk from a supermarket. When he admitted carrying a knife, he was arrested and charged. He was remanded in Brixton prison. 18 hours after being locked up, he committed suicide.
I think there's far too many people in Brixton that shouldn't be in there, because they're not criminals. They've got mental issues. He knew he needed help. That's why he cried out for help. And other people in his situation should have somewhere to go before they end up in prison.
Sadly, Wesley's story is an all too familiar one. He should never have been in prison. He needed help, not punishment. Time and time again, mentally ill people or their families have to rely on the police, quite simply because often there is no one else around, especially when it's a weekend or the middle of the night. I was shocked to hear a staggering 10% of police time is now taken up dealing with mental illness, and quite frankly, they're not getting the support they need.
There's a confusion within the system over whether somebody's ill and should be in hospital or is actually criminal and should be in the criminal justice system.
And do you believe that some of the awful tragedies, the suicides and the occasional homicides, are preventable?
Definitely, yes. Again, sometimes it's because we're the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service. It's very easy for us to be left picking up the pieces. But certainly, what would be nice, would be good, I think, would be for the trust and the health service in terms of mental illness to see some of these issues as their problem, not our problem.
What makes me still angry is that our mental health system ignores the repeated pleas of help from people with mental illness and their families. The problem is that by the time they reach or receive help, it can be too late. What we really need is more early intervention. We need to get inside communities. This project in a South London barbershop is a great example of catching mental health problems early.
Your BP is 148/96 and your pulse is 96. And you know what it's supposed to be? Yeah? So it's slightly high.
People are reluctant to go to their GPs to check for physical conditions like high blood pressure. We felt if we came here and measured their blood pressure, we use this as a carrot to find out about psychological distress.
Men with partners are healthier than men with no partners because the women would actually make sure that you take time and slow down.
This specially trained team is so important because it encourages people to recognize the early signs of mental illness and enables them to get help before their problems become serious.
Most people with mental illness need more practical support for their problems rather than just medication. We use the barber shops as a recruiting ground.
I think the work this team is doing is terrific. We need more imaginative and easily accessible projects like these to reach people who might otherwise avoid the mental health system. Waiting until people become seriously ill is neither humane nor cost-effective. Until this is realised, vulnerable Londoners will continue to be shortchanged by the very system that has made so many promises to improve their care and treatment.